Hello friends, so welcome to this lecture. In this particular demo, we'll create a SQL server and a SQL database on it. So in this lecture, we'll try to see how we can create the SQL database using a Azure portal. So there are a couple of ways. Either you can select the SQL service from here, SQL databases, or click from here. One is the same thing. So we'll create a SQL server, basically a SQL database. So one thing which I like to clear is whenever you create a SQL database, there must be a SQL server, and on a particular SQL servers, you are able to create a number of SQL databases which could be accessed by the different applications. So so here we are doing the configuration for a SQL server, but we need a SQL database, but we need a SQL server for that. So I'll be using the same resource group, security architects hyphen resource group, and database name will give SA hyphen SQL DB 389, and then this is the server we need to create on which we'll be entering that, which will be installing, where we'll be installing that SQL database. So I don't have any SQL server created right now, so we'll create a new SQL server. And SQL server name, again security architect SQL server 389, the name I'll be giving, and then the server admin login. So I don't know if you have worked on to the SQL servers or SQL databases or not, but just to give you a clarity that okay, the server name which we are providing, or the this is server name and this is the admin login which we are providing. So this is with the help of this particular credentials, that particular user, if you'll give him to that particular credential, he'll be able to log into any of the database which you'll be creating on that. So let me show you with the help of an example. So let's say if this is the image I have taken, this is a SQL server. So the credentials which we are creating over here are basically for the SQL server which is over here. So if this admin credentials, let's say you are giving it to someone, then he'll be able to log into all the databases, let's say db1, db2, db3, number of databases which you will be creating. Like here we can see the number of databases. So that particular a user can create a number of databases onto that. So that is why we need to take a proper security, that okay, how we are managing the admin credentials for that. So these are the server admin credentials, and with the server admin credentials, the user will be able to log into any of the database. And so we will enter the username. I'll be entering the simple username, SQL server 3 SQL server admin, and then I'll take a note of it, and because we might need it in our further subsequent lectures. And then we'll enter the password, and then sorry, so this is the password. I will be using the location as East US again. So here we need to click on OK, and then that server will be reflecting over here where it will create that SQL database. So this is the server. Now we can see that. So I'm not going to use any of the option, but let me use the basic one, because here we are using the premium one. So let's go to the basic and click on apply and review and create. So a new database will be created over here. So it will take few minutes for the database to create, because the deployment is in progress. Once the database is created, I'll come back. Now the deployment has been succeeded. We'll go to that particular resource, and you can see that our the SQL database which we have configured is up now, and this is basically the SQL DB configuration which you are able to see. And if you want to see the SQL server configuration, these are the SQL server configurations. And remember, when we were creating the SQL database, we saw that okay, we provided the admin which can basically access any of the SQL server. Now there is another, that is basically how we can authenticate to the SQL databases. Now, if let's say you want that Microsoft AD or Azure AD can manage, or you want to use the Azure AD authentication for your SQL databases, you can do that as well. See, the benefit is if you use the SQL AD authentication, you'll be able to centrally manage database users and all other Microsoft's services with this particular AD only, right? And there are a number of benefits like the user password rotation, enabling the MFA, getting a message or a call, right? All those options are pretty easy with the help of using the Azure AD for the authentication of your SQL databases, because all the things you'll be able to manage in a one place. So that you can enable by enabling the this Azure Active Directory admin. So if you'll click on Azure this Active Directory admin, you'll be able to add admin into this. See, remember, this option is available onto the SQL Server only. So if you'll go to the database, you'll not be able to see this option. So I'll set admin, so you can select any of the users. So let's say for the other storage accounts, we created one user, Jakpal, so we can add that particular user to the admin group. And then again, this user will also be having permission to manage all the databases. So I'll click on save. So this is how we can provide access to the databases. So again, we can provide the role-based access. So we'll discuss into the upcoming lectures role-based access and how we can provide access, that okay, which clients will be able to manage the SQL server. So now say this is our SQL server, this is the SQL server name. We can use the username and the password to connect this SQL server and then manage the databases. So you can use any of the SQL client which are available in the market to connect to the databases. And in the subsequent lectures, we'll see how we can manage the client IPs, which will be able to manage the SQL server, individual client IP, or the virtual networks. All those options we'll see on the upcoming lectures. So this is it, friends. In this lecture, we discussed or we saw that how we can create a SQL server, then a database onto the SQL server, then the two ways to connect to the SQL server via the SQL admin which we have created, and then by using the Active Directory admin. So thank you for watching this lecture. Meet you in the next lecture.